We're here at Perry Harvey Senior Park in downtown Tampa, Florida, on the grounds of what once was Central Avenue. It was the historically black business district in Tampa that closed in 1974. We would like to produce a documentary film that tells the complete story of Central Avenue, its rise through segregation, its demise through desegregation, a 1967 civil disturbance, and urban renewal, and ultimately, we would like for this to be a part of the remembrance of Central Avenue. And we would like to give you some insight into the story from the folks who lived it and the historians who have studied it.
Well, when you think of Central Avenue, you think of Harlem Nights. You think of good times. There was a lot of clubs, a lot of eating places, and it was a time for where black folks had fun. It was our New York City.
During the days of segregation, there were many places we could not go. We could not go to the white theaters. We couldn't go to the white restaurants and sit down and have a hamburger or whatever. And so there was a certain feeling that, am I really wanted here? They would accept our money, but we couldn't sit down and eat with other people. So that didn't happen on Central Avenue. You knew that when you were on Central Avenue, you were welcome everywhere.
I think you can reflect the racism existed very strongly in this town. Black people couldn't have jobs of any significance back during that period of time. And even on Central Avenue, there were one or two people that were white. The drugstore was white owned and run, and one or two other stores were owned by white people in the black community. So there were very few black people that had any clout when it comes to a business in this community.
What we're talking about when we talk about the long struggle for civil rights is the fact that the struggle for equality, in particular the equality of African Americans in this country, actually began in the 1920s and 1930s, and some would even say it goes all the way back to Reconstruction.
World War II is an important turning point in terms of African American activism and agitation. It's called the Double V campaign for double victory. Victory over fascism abroad, victory over Jim Crow at home. This is when the Montgomery bus boycott is the late 50s. The Greensboro sit-ins are in 1960. The sit-in movement spreads across the South in 1960.
The city in 1959 had started a sort of a biracial committee that was supposed to mediate race relations. And I think the thing to keep in mind when we're talking about this is the fact that there was nothing in place to sort of be a center of dialogue for race relations in Tampa. It was young people that really kicked off the civil rights movement here in Tampa with the lunch counter sit-ins.
After we sit-in for a week or so, the city fathers got together, the biracial committee, and they got me in a meeting and asked me if I would agree to give them time to work it out. So in September, we decided that every store in the city that had lunch counters, we would send 2 people in to eat on a trial basis at 10 in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
It is recognized the sort of commercial elites of the city recognizes that disruption is bad for business, and that if measured, cautious integration is better than disruption and unrest. So this comes to be called the Tampa technique. What happens after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And what happens across the United States is urban unrest.
Newspaper accounts, we've been able to find quite a few of those stories from that era, talked about what happened on that June day when Martin Chambers, who was 19 years old, and some other young men, and we really can't tell you a lot about those other young men who were involved in this situation, but Martin was running away from a burglary, and Officer Jim Calvert fired one single shot, shot Martin in the back.
That blew me away. I mean, that just riled me up. That was, and the cops got away with all this stuff, outraged about what was going on. Nothing was done to these guys. That was the time that white people could do anything they wanted to do to black people, and basically nothing happened.
And there were 3 days and nights of civil disturbances, first in the Central Avenue area, and then also there was a little violence on the west side of town and on the east side of town as a result of that. And that really helped to change what Central Avenue was and what Tampa was as far as race relations in a lot of different ways.
What that did was it destroyed the whole Central Avenue. It destroyed jobs, it destroyed businesses, and basically it destroyed some people's lives.
Urban renewal was definitely a part of this whole equation of the riot, and I think of the frustration in the community.
The major highways that are built through a lot of downtown areas tend to target minority communities, which from the perspective of urban planners, these are classified as slums. From the perspective of residents, they are thriving communities and business areas.
So I think it's very important that people to recognize that and to recognize from which we have come.
Central Avenue should teach us a great lesson as black people as to what you can accomplish, what you can achieve when you work together.
Since this is a historical documentary, we already have the people to tell you the story. Where we need your help is with the archival records, both through news outlets and library archives. For your generous donation, you too will be included in the production credits of this documentary, and we thank you for helping tell this important story.